And for more on this, we're going now to former U.S. diplomat Jim Jatras. Jim, always great to have you.
Thank you, Manila.
So this upcoming summit, it'll be the first full-fledged bilateral meeting between Trump and Putin, being hosted in Helsinki. President Gerald Ford met with Leonid Brezhnev there. The Helsinki Accords came of that meeting. Helsinki also hosted the first major summit between Bill Clinton and Boris Yeltsin after the fall of the USSR. So this city has a lot of historical significance. Do you think them picking this city, does that play a role at all?
It might have. Everybody was talking about Vienna before
Right.
this, and both Vienna and Helsinki were sort of like the key neutral countries during the first Cold War. In fact, there was even that expression to Finlandize, to make a country neutral, like that was a bad thing. So I think that Helsinki is a very reasonable choice, and maybe they're trying to tap into some of that visual significance.
Sending a message that way.
Sure, yes, this is historic.
Ah, I see. Now the date, though, what could also be historic is it falls about just a month after the Trump-Kim Jong-un meeting in Singapore. It'll be a few days after NATO, which you also predicted. I told you we have you back on to talk about that. Your prediction came true. It's a few days after the NATO meeting. Why do you suppose a lot of America's allies that'll be at NATO will probably apply a lot of heat onto President Trump about this meeting? Why do you think they're going to do that? Well,
you say a lot of America's allies. I think some of America's allies,
Okay.
the Poles, the Baltic states, maybe the Romanians. I don't think he'll get much guff from the Germans, from the French, certainly not from the Italians. I think the British will be very upset, especially since I think some of their dirty tricks that are involved in Russiagate and FISA-gate and all of that may start coming out. So I think Theresa May has a lot of reasons to worry. But I don't think there will be any kind of unified allied push on Trump so much. I think there'll be a gaggle of disagreements there like we've seen with him previously.
I mean, we saw at G7 how unhappy they were that he brought up wanting to bring Russia back into the fold of the G8. Do you think we'll see that kind of pushback?
I think from some of them, but after all, or even Mr. Pompeo, who's certainly not pro-Russian, said something along those lines just recently that, well, Russia doesn't need to give Crimea back to get back into the G8. Some of those countries won't want to hear that.
Well, you know, today over in Moscow, the former Soviet president, Mikhail Gorbachev, he told Interfax that this meeting between Trump and Putin can be historic if the two can make any strides towards future cooperation. But meanwhile, Maria Zakharova, Russia's foreign ministry spokeswoman, she kind of tamped down expectations. What do you expect to come out of this from the pair?
I think like the summit with Kim, what is historic is the meeting itself. That, look, there's been all sorts of roadblocks being thrown in the way of President Trump, who clearly wanted to move in this direction even before he was elected and has not been allowed to do so. But I think after the Kim summit, with the unraveling now of this whole Russian collusion nonsense, I think he feels freer to do that. But even then, we still have some hysteria. We have somebody on CNN saying that Putin is devouring Trump. You have John Bolton being accused of being a double agent. I mean, we've reached this level of insanity in this country when it comes to what should be a very normal dialogue between the presidents of the two most powerful countries in the world.
I mean, the years that you worked in government, I believe they called that diplomacy, right?
Yeah, it rings a bell somewhere, Manila.
Where leaders of two nations talk to each other.
Exactly. Now, I don't expect a whole lot of things to get settled there if they can maybe start down the road toward maybe redressing some of the decrease in diplomatic representation or something like that, come to some broader understanding on things like Ukraine and Syria. But I don't expect anybody to come out and say, we've solved all the problems.
Right, and we're normalizing relations, everything's great.
It's copacetic. No, I don't.
And last but not least, you did mention the Russian collusion stuff a moment ago. Earlier today, President Trump again cast doubt on that Russian involvement in the meddling of the 2016 elections, tweeting about it in his usual form. Isn't he kind of just adding more fuel to the fire, though, by posting something like that out there ahead of their summit? I mean, a lot of people on the left are going, well, you see, he's just already setting this up.
Well, I think he is adding fuel to the fire, and I say good for him. As we discussed before, I think he likes to set his critics' hair on fire so he can pour more gasoline on top of that fire. What's he going to lose? You know, hang for a penny, hang for a pound. They're going to accuse him of being a Russian puppet anyway, and they've been using that ridiculous charge all these months to prevent him, frankly, from doing his job. And I think if he twists the knife a little bit and twits them a little bit, I'm all for it.
Yeah, you did. You have said he likes lighting their hair on fire, having them put it out with a pot or pan. So we're gonna
Well, better
see.
yet, don't put it out. Just let it burn.
That seems to be a pattern with President Trump. As always, thank you so much for
Thank you
sharing
so
your
much.
expertise with us, Jim Jatras.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.